Nobody joins a cult. That's not a paradox, it's just how it works. No one sits down, weighs their options, and decides to hand over their savings and cut off their family for a charismatic stranger. The people who end up in cults almost universally describe joining something that looked at first like exactly what they needed: a community, a purpose, a framework for understanding a world that hadn't been making much sense lately. The word cult is one we apply after the fact, usually from the outside. From the inside, at the beginning, it tends to look like the most reasonable decision a person has made in years. This matters because the popular image of cult members, desperate, gullible, uneducated people who were easy to fool, is almost entirely wrong. Researchers who study high-control groups consistently find that members skew toward above-average intelligence and education. Many are former skeptics. Some are therapists, lawyers, scientists. The psychological techniques that make cults work don't exploit stupidity. They exploit very normal human needs, and they do it systematically. The first technique has a name that sounds almost sweet: love bombing. When someone new enters a high-control group, they are met with an intensity of warmth and attention that most people have never experienced from strangers. Everyone wants to talk to them. Everyone is interested in their story. They're told early and often that they're special, that they found this group for a reason, that they clearly have something others lack. This isn't accidental. It's a deliberate onboarding strategy. The neurological effect of sudden intense social approval is real and measurable. It activates the same reward pathways as certain drugs, and it creates a baseline, a feeling the recruit now associates with the group that becomes very difficult to give up later. The timing matters too. Cult researchers have noted that recruitment is far more successful when someone is in a period of transition: a recent move, a breakup, a job loss, a death in the family. These moments produce exactly the kind of openness and longing for connection that love bombing is designed to fill. Most major cults actively target transitional periods. It's not predatory intuition, it's documented recruiting strategy. Once someone is inside, the group's real structure starts to emerge. But by then, the process of commitment has already begun. Robert Cialdini, a psychologist who studied influence professionally for decades, documented what he called the consistency principle. Once people commit to something, they experience strong psychological pressure to behave consistently with that commitment. Cults exploit this almost algorithmically. The asks start small: attend a meeting, read this book, come to a weekend retreat. Each step is reasonable given the previous one. Each yes makes the next yes more likely, and makes reversing course feel like a betrayal of who you've decided you are. By the time the asks become large: give us money, cut off your skeptical friends, move into our facility, the person has already said yes dozens of times. The large ask doesn't feel like a cliff. It feels like the next step. This is sometimes called the foot in the door technique, and it works on everyone. In studies where researchers tested it on regular people with no cult involvement, compliance rates for large requests went up dramatically when preceded by a series of small ones. The cult context doesn't create a unique vulnerability, it just applies the principle with unusual consistency and intent. Isolation is the mechanism that makes the rest sustainable. High control groups almost always work to separate members from outside relationships. Not always physically, though that happens, but epistemically. The outside world gets reframed as dangerous, corrupted, or simply incapable of understanding what the member now knows. Family members who express concern get labeled as threatened by the member's growth or as agents of whatever force the group positions itself against. The effect is that the group becomes the primary, eventually the only source of social reality for its members, and social reality is more powerful than most people realize. Humans are deeply social creatures. We calibrate our sense of what's true, what's normal, and what's possible largely through our relationships. Remove those relationships and replace them with a uniform ideological environment, and perception shifts in ways that are genuinely hard to resist from the inside. There's a study from the 1950s, Solomon Asch's conformity experiments, where participants were asked which of 3 lines on a card matched a reference line. The answer was obvious. But when everyone else in the room, who were actors, confidently gave the wrong answer, about a third of participants went along with them. Not because they couldn't see, because social consensus exerts pressure on perception itself. In a cult environment, that pressure runs constantly, in every direction, with no dissenting voices allowed. The final piece is thought stopping. Most high-control groups develop explicit techniques for interrupting doubt. These vary. Repetitive chanting, prayer rituals, confession practices, meditation exercises that practitioners are instructed to use whenever critical thoughts arise. In some groups, doubt itself is framed as a spiritual attack, a sign of weakness, or evidence of the outside world's corrupting influence. The practical effect is that the normal human process of questioning, which is how we update beliefs, recognize mistakes, and protect ourselves from manipulation, gets systematically short-circuited. The person isn't stupid. Their cognitive machinery is intact, it's just been pointed away from the one set of questions that would matter most. Former members consistently describe this phase as the one that's hardest to explain to people who haven't experienced it. From the outside, it looks like willful blindness. From the inside, it felt like discipline or devotion or mental hygiene, a choice they were making every day because they believed it was good for them. Leaving is in some ways harder than joining. By the time someone is deep enough in a high-control group to want out, several things have usually happened. Their outside relationships have been damaged or severed. Their sense of identity has been rebuilt around the group's framework. They may have given money, time, years of their life, and the psychological weight of admitting that loss is enormous. Researchers call this the sunk cost trap. And it's not unique to cults. The more we've invested in something, the harder it is to walk away, even when walking away is clearly correct. There's also the question of what leaving means practically. Many former members describe a profound social and existential vacuum after exiting. The community is gone. The framework for understanding the world is gone. In some cases, the career and housing the group provided are gone. Recovery is real, but it's slow, and it rarely looks like simply waking up the way popular accounts suggest. NXIVM, Heaven's Gate, the People's Temple. The groups that make headlines are the ones with the most catastrophic outcomes, but researchers estimate there are thousands of smaller high-control groups operating at any given time, most of which never become notorious. The techniques are the same, the damage is the same, the scale is just smaller. The reason this matters beyond curiosity is that the conditions that make cults possible are stable features of human psychology, not historical accidents. The need for community, meaning and certainty, isn't a weakness, it's just human. Periods of social disruption and personal transition aren't rare, they're universal. The cognitive tendencies that cults exploit, consistency, social proof, the authority bias, the sunk cost effect, these aren't bugs, they're usually useful. They just become liabilities in environments specifically engineered to weaponize them. Understanding the mechanics doesn't make anyone immune, but it does make the early warning signs legible in a way they otherwise aren't. Love bombing feels good, incremental commitment feels reasonable, isolation from critics feels like loyalty. None of those things announce themselves as danger, they announce themselves as exactly what you've been looking for.